The issue. Since 1945, Africa has been facing its worst food crisis to date. Hunger became a massive issue in the 60s, where millions grew hungry due to the fleeting food production.
More contributing issues to how this issue started is constant droughts and climate, as well as conflicts and instability, which has led Africa into major food shortages. Wars such as the Biafras in Nigeria, which created a blockade, causing 2 million civilians to die from starvation caused by stalemate in 1966. Africa's food insecurity has been an ongoing problem for many years, with many factors contributing to its prevalence. There is no exact date to when this issue started, but it is clear that Africa has faced significant food security challenges for decades. There have been several factors that have contributed to Africa's food insecurity over time, including climate changes such as droughts and floods, armed conflicts like the Nigerian Civil War, population, and poverty, which both greatly impact the economy. These factors have significantly impacted the continent's food system, which has made it difficult for people to access nutritious and clean food. Africa's food insecurity is a complex issue that has been driven by various factors over time, as many seek to help those victims of this nutrition travesty.
Statistics. The literacy rate in Africa in 2017 was 65% and has been slowly increasing every year since then. The current life expectancy of Africans is about 64 years, which has also been steadily increasing. And the gender split for Africa is an almost perfect 50-50, as it's about 95 males per 100 females. Stats analysis. Despite its varying statistics in literacy and life expectancy, one constant that has stayed the same for decades is its gender split, as Africa has been, by technicality, a female-dominated continent with its 95 to 100 split. Life expectancy has tremendously increased, as back in 1950, people were averaging a lifespan of about 30 to 40 years, compared to its current 60 to 65. Africa's literacy rate has been an issue for a long time, as a large percentage cannot read or write, which can hugely impact their future in work, making it very difficult to find sustainable, well-paying jobs.
The two main societal issues that contribute to Africa's food insecurity is poverty and population growth. And according to the World Bank, over 40% of Africa's sub-Saharan population lives on less than $1.90 a day. And Africa's population growth has been doubled since 1974 by 3.5%. So who is responsible here? There really hasn't been like one major thing that's really responsible for all, but there has been criticism towards the African government's role in contributing to food insecurity, as they have been accused of neglecting development of rural infrastructure, such as irrigation, roads, and storage facilities, limiting farmers' access to markets. Also, in 2020, it was noted that poor governance, corruption, and weak institutions are major obstacles to providing food security in many African countries. Because of deforestation, climate change, and overuse causing soil degradation, making the soil fertility decline, and it becomes increasingly difficult to grow crops, which leads to shortages, food shortages, and conflicts and droughts, as well as economic issues which have been triggered by COVID-19, have reversed years of progress towards better health security in Africa. And 282 million people are unnourished in Africa, which is 46 million more compared to than 2019. It can be noticed that the COVID-19 pandemic and climate changes have had a significant role in perpetrating this issue of Africa's food security, as well as government policies. Also, COVID-19 policies have impacted Africa's food security greatly, as it has disrupted global supply chains and reduced access to markets, which increased poverty, and then climate change as well, which brought the droughts, the floods, and the soil degradation.
Approximately 140 million Africans face food insecurity. Central African Republic, Chad, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Madagascar are the most food insecure countries. One reason for this is that countries like Ukraine and Russia have raised their prices for exporting wheat and sunflower oil. This makes it more difficult for Africans to gain access to it. One reason why some are affected more than others is that war makes it so that civilians are driven away from their livelihoods, farms, and food sources. African children are often more affected by food insecurity. Lack of food for youth can cause malnutrition and can lead to bigger health issues later on in life. Food insecurity affects millions of people in Africa, especially those who live in poverty. It has many negative effects. Factors such as climate change increase food insecurity. Some people are more affected than others for many reasons, such as those who are living in poverty and women and children. The Feed Africa Foundation has intervened by bringing food, clothes, electricity, and much more to Africa. The Children of Nations organization intervened by raising money to support farmers and businesses that help feed Africans. Hunger strikes have taken place to show people's support for the situation. One of the longest hunger strikes was conducted by a South African activist, Bobby Sands. It lasted 66 days and he ended up dying from it. Aliko Dangote is a Nigerian businessman who has donated millions of dollars in support towards African food security and agriculture. Organizations and individuals have intervened with African food insecurity in many ways. Whether it be through investing in agriculture or providing aid, they work to address issues such as climate change and poverty that can impact food security. Their goal is to help ensure that people have access to nutritious food and are able to support themselves and their families.
In depth, Africa has been struggling with food shortage as long as we remember. It is hard to sustain good food sources as climate change constantly affects the crops and are being destroyed, as well as difficult to transport the food. Africa now more than ever is dealing with immense lows of food shortage. As of 2022, 37 people were facing acute hunger, along with 7 million children under the age of 5. Farmers are trying to act fast to benefit the people of Africa. They are trying to figure out new ways on how to use fertilizer in heavy waves, but at the same time try not to harm climate change even more. Africa is humanity's best hope for food security. Russian war over Ukraine has negatively affected food sources as well, leaving so many with famine. As we have learned, Africa has suffered great food shortages for decades on end, but now they are fighting large measures of climate change, making it extremely harder for harvest and crop. As of 2022, 37 million people experienced severe hunger, as well as 7 million children under the age of 5 faced malnourishment due to such terrible food insecurity. Along with the climate change issue, the farmers are trying to tackle a method where they can create such needed crops, but also keep in mind the amount of fertilizer. Fertilizer is important, but as at this point in time, they are using an excessive amount, but it is needed. With such large amounts of fertilizer, they are afraid of a worsening future for climate change. Along with the usual problems, the Russian war over Ukraine has not helped in the slightest, as they have suffered great famine. The outlook for the future of Africa. Irrigation was thought to be the solution, but would still leave many without food. So they have come up with new methods such as cropland expansion or greater reliance on imports. Greater reliance on imports may be risky due to the prices. Africa is actually the world's breadbasket with 60% unused cropland. They are trying to create agricultural systems, sustainable and resilient food systems. Solar power has also been considered to then create irrigation, water access, and temperature control for food storage. New methods for the future of Africa can be looked at in both ways, negative and positive. It was believed that irrigation would help the shortage of food, but bigger changes will need to be made in order to feed the whole population. They are looking into cropland expansion or greater reliance on imports, but this is hard as things are very expensive. On the other hand, Africa seems to be the breadbasket for humanity, with 60% of the world's unused cropland. Resilience can be portrayed with new resilient food systems, as well as solar power may be a great addition to then have storage for food and much more. How to help. The African Development Bank set up a $1.5 billion fund to help with the food shortage in Africa. There has also been help sent with emergency food to Africa. Many people sponsored children and families. This is simply writing letters, helping with food, and so much more. The most important thing would be to get involved and learn that not only do they need food, but they need, most importantly, sustainable food. It is hard to really understand what to do to help this food shortage, but there will always be room for donations, and in fact, the African Development set up an emergency food production for $1.5 billion. You can also volunteer to help as well as sponsor a child and their family. You can send notes and food. But most importantly, understand what is truly going on and knowing that not always it is the food that is needed, but it's the true nutritional food that is needed.